We are live, and let me start with this question. Are we heading towards a financial apocalypse? You see, some say that many people use the book of Revelation to create terror in this world, right? Also, we can argue that the Bible has been one of the most influential book in human history, right? Some use this book for great things, some use this book for many evil things. But the question is, can we use this book ourselves to predict what's going in the market right now? Well, today I'll make the argument today. I have a thesis ready for you, and we're going to have a lot to talk about, but I can make the argument that we can actually use this book as a way to predict what's going to happen. There are certain things that are happening in the world right now that are resembling a lot what's the revelations that we have in these books, and we're going to make the parallels between what happens in the book, what also is happening in real world, and see where we can make some money from it. Ladies and gentlemen, let's get into it.
Hey, yeah. It's all about wealth engineering. Might be something that you're not used to. It's okay, cause I'm here to introduce you to concepts. Time to grow and make big moves. All about crypto, come see. Stocks and business, yes indeed. Got the info that you need. Hosted by my homie JC. Hey, yeah. Wealth engineering. Stacking and stacking it up. It's time to generate wealth. Till you living like Scrooge McDuck. Hey, wealth engineering. It's time to show you the game. Till you living like Richie Rich, till you ballin' like Bruce Wayne. Hey, you ain't gotta be an expert, no problem. It don't really matter where you at, just start it. It'll take time, hard work, and
What's up, guys? This is JC, and welcome to the Wealth Engineering Podcast. This is where I create content so that you can learn how to make, keep, and multiply money. But for us to be able to do that, we got to make sure we stay alive. We got to make sure our portfolio stay alive as well. And are we heading towards a financial apocalypse? These are things we will be discussing tonight. I have a great show for you. I was getting ready, make sure everything was set up. I have the sound system. You see the title, you see the thumbnail, you see my headphones. You know that there is going to be some video reviews, and we're going to elaborate, especially it's not going to be just like, it's not going to be a biblical story. That's not what the point is, but we're going to make the parallel with what's happening in the Bible versus what's happening in real life, because there are some eerie resemblance. And if that's the case, that means we can see what's the next horses of the apocalypse will be, and how that's going to represent itself in the market, right? As investors, though, your job is to predict, to be a good predictor of what's going to happen in the future and how to make profit from it, right? And I can argue that one of these horsemen are called famine. So it's not necessarily just for profit. It could actually be to maintain, sustain your current lifestyle, right? And we're talking about, most of us are just having a basic lifestyle where we make enough to feed our family, go to work, and buy what we need, and just have a small money aside that we can invest for generational wealth to pass down to our next generation. And most people are not asking for much, but even that could be at risk if we're heading towards a financial collapse, if we're heading towards a financial apocalypse, right? So we're going to break down who are the horses of the apocalypse, how that is relating with our current events right now, and more importantly, how can we make money from all this, right? If we can understand on a macroeconomic aspect what's happening, then we know that the bigger forces that can affect your wealth can also find its way down to your portfolio. If you know the timing of it and you can leverage that to your advantage, then yeah, you can actually be thriving as opposed to be a victim of that, right? But that's the purpose of this stream. Many people are asking me, why are you still talking about the war or things like this? It's because it has a huge factor, and we see that. We've seen that in the last couple of weeks in our portfolios. Anytime there is a major news during this war, it affects it either positively or negatively our portfolio, whether it's stocks or crypto. You can see the trend, and that's the purpose of all this, right? We're going to discuss about all that, but I'm very excited, guys, because I've been working yesterday a lot on these projects, researching, and then making some articles together, and you'll be surprised that the times that we're living in. It's really going to make you wonder, are we living in biblical times, right? These stories on the Bibles are, well, some would say stories, some would say that there are historical event, some will say there are prediction. Regardless of how you feel about that, one thing we can all agree on is there are some interesting parallels between what was happening in the Bible, the Roman era, the Roman times, and also what's happening right now. And we're going to break it down. So, if we can understand what happened to the Romans, we can sort of see the patterns of what's happening also to us. And we've also made a stream about the world reserve currency. We broke down the Ray Dalio's video about world reserve currency change, and there is a lot of similarities with empires rising and falling, which is making its term right now. But I have a feeling this case right now, it's a bit different than what we've seen in the past in history, and we're gonna get into it. We're gonna get into it. But first, let me say hello to a member of the channel. Thank you very much, Lovely. Hello, JC. Happy to see you here. Hello, Lovely, as well. Very lovely names you have here. And let's get into it. And also, the Intentional Millionaire. Salute to you. Salute. Happy to see you here. It's been a while. We got to connect again. And let's get into it, guys. So, again, the reason why we're doing all this is make sure that we can get our portfolio to a level where we have inspiration from Mr. The Intentional Millionaire, and be at that level, right? So we can actually now the millionaires of our time are the average society, right? They're the middle class. That's the thing. If you're not a millionaire, you're not in the middle class. So let's get into it. Cash flow hunter. If you follow the Bible, there is no reason to chase financial freedom. Well, I don't know. I don't know. One thing for sure is financial freedom definitely helps not paying taxes to government. I know you like taxes, so financial freedom. You can do your own. Me, the way I see it is, you can create your own future. Your own. You secure your own family. You you put to life what you see for the world, right? And then you don't necessarily have to spend all your time to work for someone else making their vision happen, because they don't necessarily have the best strategies, they don't necessarily have the best intentions in mind. So if you are a better person, financial freedom can actually help you bring the Lord's work into fruition, right? Shout out to Miss Karine. We interviewed someone, a young lady, early 30s. She's actually running a foundation in one of the most dangerous place in the Western Hemisphere, and also one of the most poorest places in the Western Hemisphere. And she's risking her life every time she goes to a hospital, but she has to create that because they have an average of 40 births a day. And without this hospital, people in this region, we're talking about over 100,000 people, would actually be giving birth on the floor, as opposed to having care, and of all that, decrease the rate of mortality of those children's, right? So the only reason she was able to do that is because her family worked to have financial freedom, and now they're passing it down to her, Miss Karine, that we interviewed a couple of weeks ago, to talk about that, right? So it's not necessarily, I could argue that she's doing Lord's work. I could argue that she's doing what the Bible intended for all of us to do, right? To forgive, to give back to the people that needs it the most. But she's only able to do that because her parents was able to build a real estate empire that she could leave off on, free up her time, and then use that time at the service of others. So money is not necessarily the root of all evil. It's human desire that is the root of all evil. Money is just a tool. You are you have a free will. You can decide how you want to use it. You can use it for good, you can use it for evil, just like the Bible. People use the Bible for good, people use the Bible for evil. But today We're going to get into the Bible times. We're going to talk about the four horsemen. And we're going to see how those actions, good or evil, are going to lead to a financial collapse and how you can defend yourself for it. But let me go through the chat very quick. Hello, LOL. She stole my thunder. How are you doing? Let me see if you put all your financial faith on God. I'm not here to argue about religion here. I'm just here to report the fact. And let's get into it, guys. Let's get into it, guys. So, who are the horsemen of the apocalypse? Well, it's the horsemen of the apocalypse. It comes from the stories in the Bible. I think it's the Revelations, and where there's about four horsemen, and they're not necessarily humans, right? They each of them represent either entities or either events that are about to happen to bring havoc on Earth. And actually, I have some videos for you. I want to play it down, and we're going to react to it. And then and we're going to see, are we currently living in those times right now? But let's get into it, guys. Let me know. Press the one if you can hear it. If you cannot hear it, let me know as well. We'll get into it, but it should be all right. Let's get it. Yeah, man. Look, shout out to this channel right here, man. Mythology and Fiction Explained. Actually, I'm very fascinated about mythology since I was a kid. And then I just love the way they animate this. It's pretty good. Shout out to them. Make sure you like it if you watch it. There will be links in the description as well if you want to learn more about that. And yes, I also like the background music they play behind it. It just makes it more scary, right? Let's get into it. All right, that's it. That's the settings for today, guys. What are the stories of the horsemen and how can they relate with us? Shout out to you, Mr. Alonso Hall. Thank you for being here. And salute to you as well, sir. Nice to see you here. But man, excited, guys. I'm excited. Now we're going to start with the first horseman, right? We're talking about the horseman that came with the white horse. Now there is, I mean, I think we will hear it on the video as well. There is, it's not all black and white when it comes to horsemen. It all opens to it. It's always open to the people's imagination, right, or people's interpretation of what they think it is. Some people might think one horseman is Jesus, for example. Another one might think the horseman is Antichrist. But some people might think, hey, horsemen's is arrow. Some people might say there are like plagues. So we don't really know. But we're going to listen to it, and we're going to see if we can relate that with what's happening right now. All right, so very good point, right? Because hey, remember we're going to talk about what is the relationship between what's happening right now. But most people are interpreting the first writers as pestilence, plague. Now, by the time we get to the fourth writers, you're going to see why that plays a hand. But the first one, they always, I mean, most people pretend that, but it's not necessarily written in the Bible. Does that mean it's black and white? No, it's all about interpretation. But one thing you need to do is when you're thinking of these stories, you also have to think of the times that were there, right? The times that people wrote those stories in, and what was the mindset, right? So a lot of that is, and as people are going through the times, they also make their own interpretation from those time into now, into the current day. But whether we agree or not, in history this writer has been associated with the plague. And let's get into it. Oh, you don't hear anything, really? Let me see what I can do with that. Well, thank you for letting me know. Thank you for letting me know. Let me see. Always seems to be having problems with this. There you go. Should be all right now. Let's see what's happening. How about now? Can you guys hear?
Seven seals have been broken. Four riders shall be summoned. Conquest, war, famine, and death. With them these riders shall bring the...
Can you guys hear? Can you let me know with a one? Yes, one. Oh, still nothing on your side, Mr. The Intentional Millionaire? Yes, you can hear now. Okay, good. Okay, now we're good. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you for letting me know. Struggle streaming already, but now we're here. Salute to you, Adrian. How are you doing? What are you talking over here? Revelations? Well, not necessarily. We're gonna start with Revelation because that's where it's at. But it's more about the financial apocalypse. Why we're here. Financial apocalypse. But I argue there are some resemblance that we see in Revelation that we're currently seeing right now in what I call the financial apocalypse. And to me, that are the signs of some biblical times that we're living in. Are we living in biblical times? Well, today is my thesis. And if you guys have some times, let's listen to it. Let's see how it is. So I'm going to go very quick. Basically, the summary of this video is going to who are the four horsemen. I know you guys couldn't hear. So for you that are still here, let's go through it very quickly, and then we'll
Four of
go
the
back.
seven seals have been broken. Four riders shall be summoned. Conquest, war, famine, and death. With them these riders shall bring the apocalypse. You've probably heard of the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse before, whether it was through the original biblical stories or some kind of modern reference. When it comes to the end of days, you can't go far without bumping into the Four Horsemen.
Mm-hmm.
So who are these mysterious figures, and what exactly is their story?
Who are they? You guys see the background sound that they're playing? It's pretty spooky. Well, guys, you might hear me laugh a lot throughout this stream. I'm actually having fun, lots of fun. It's a subject that I interested a lot, but it's not. It doesn't necessarily mean that we're heading towards laughing times, right? We currently have wars happening right now, which some can argue it's the second horseman, but we'll see. We'll see. We'll get into it. But it's not necessarily laughing times. At the end of the day, we can only focus on what we can control, right? Whether we decide to cry or laugh, things that are meant to happen will always happen. It's all matters of how you choose to interact with those actions. How do you use to if you fall from these actions, how you choosing to stand back up, right? And it's basically, and sometimes having a positive mindset can help you finding the best strategy for you to stand back up. So that's actually part of my what my father does. I got this from him. Yeah, when in the worst time of his life, he would actually laugh. He would actually laugh, and that's not necessarily a way to dismiss what was happening. It's just a way to shift his mindset. And most of the times, he would come up with the best decision on a positive mindset. So I'm not necessarily here that I feel stressed. I'm actually really enjoying this type of content and this type of discussion as well, because I have a sense of the supernatural a little bit, and I love mixing that with finance and making money on portfolios. But let's get into it, guys. So as I was mentioning, the first horseman is often associated with the plague, but it's not written in the Bible as this. It's more the interpretation of the people throughout the times, but there's still the word plague coming across history with this character. Let's get into it.
How the First Horseman came to represent pestilence isn't exactly known, though some will agree that the reference of plague in 6:8 likely corresponds to the First Horseman, given that the other references, sword, famine, and wild beasts, may be easily attributed to the other three horsemen. But this is still largely up for debate. In a 1916 novel titled The Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse, the White Rider is described as bending his bow to spread pestilence.
Now, very key point. What he's talking about right now is not in the Bible, right? It was a novel based on what the Bible story was. That's what I'm saying. This interpretation has been changed many times, but regardless of what it is, most people will agree that those horsemen signifies like they symbolize hard times for humanity, right? Hard times for humanity, and one horse brings the next. One horse always bring the next. There's the first one. Follow after the first one, the next one comes in. So that's we can agree all on that part.
And that his arrows were infused with bacteria. Others see this.
Now, again, that's the other point I wanted to mention. And in the novel, they were saying that hey, the arrow of the first horseman was infused by bacteria, right? Oh Lord. So in this case, is the horseman CV-19 or is the horseman the vaccine? Food for
That his
thoughts.
arrows were infused with bacteria. Others see this White Rider as Jesus Christ, and that he is a representation of the spreading of his word, and not of disease. In fact, it's understood that there was a time where many saw this first White Rider as a benign figure, one who was Christ, or at least one who represented God, similarly to an angel. Christ does later appear on a white horse in Revelation 19, which may support the idea of this being Christ, particularly when you consider the color white being a symbol of purity and righteousness. The line that refers to the White Rider wearing a crown can also be linked to Christ, suggesting that Christ is the King of all men, as well as the line that describes the White Rider as being a conqueror, in that Christ may be seen as the conqueror of evil. In a complete antithesis, though,
Now, very good point because the name of the first horseman is not plague, right? Because they always say first was the plague, then was war. It's not plague. The name of the first horseman is conquest. However, some can argue there are many ways to conquer. You can either conquer by force, you can conquer, hey, we've seen what some can argue that the CV-19 is conquering the human body, right? Probably 1/5 of the world's population at this point um, interact with this bacteria one way or another, whether it's through the vaccine or through the disease itself. It's a very contagious plague. So I could say that that's a word of conquering too. But this is why these stories are it's very hard to go to know exactly what's the final word on it because it's interpreted in many ways. But let's get into it.
many today view the White Rider as not only the physical manifestation of pestilence, but also the Antichrist himself.
All right. So I guess, and there was another, based on my research, there are many other people, theologists, that review this, and most of them agree that the first horseman is not necessarily Jesus. They definitely agree that it's a bad omen or someone pretends to be Jesus that is not. But that's how the story goes. That's what most people agree on. But they also agree on the plague aspect of it, right? They also agree that this could bring some sort of disease to humanity because each of them brings something. And you've seen the title, right? You've seen the thumbnail. And I had some fun last night going over this thumbnail. But let me bring up again the thumbnail because in 2020, right? In 2020, we can say that hey, we didn't know that was a horseman back then, but one thing for sure, that was a plague. If we had to go, if in modern history, I can't think of anything else in modern history that remind me of the word plague other than what CV-19 brought upon us, right? Pandemic. We had other been pandemic before, started early in the 2010s, right? The word pandemic was definitely there before, but not at the scale that CV-19 was able to bring upon us, right? So if we agree that the weapon of choice of the first horseman is the plague, then mm, in modern time, like I said, we haven't seen something like this before. And what did the plague brought to us on a financial aspect? I'm gonna break into it, but very quickly, let me go on the comment section. Arrow sound phallic, the foul spread disease. Okay, I'll stay celibate and abstinent. Again, I'm not here to have an argument there. I'm just here to report the news and share my own opinion about it. And again, I got see how that translates to the financial world, right? But it's something to think about. Absolutely. I agree. It is something to think about. Salute to you again before the billion. I'm not sure if I did say hello to you. Salute, salute. All right, guys. So, how did that translate in the financial world? Because the plague, right, the CV-19 did have serious impact on our economy worldwide. Worldwide, right? Now, one of the ways it affected the Western side is via unemployment, right? So this is how it affected us in an outside, and we were able to see some level of unemployment never seen before since the last time we were in World War III and things like this. Right, unemployment rise in 2020 as the country battled the CV-19 pandemic. Right. So how much did it rose? The unemployment rate increased in 2020, surging 13% in the second quarter of the year before easing to 6.7% in the fourth quarter, right? And I remember unemployment was rising very fast. There was a point we were talking about like close to 40% of people were at least in lockdowns, not working, and after it went back very quick, but it wasn't because of laid off. It was more people like, hey, business was just shut down, right? That's how the plague affected us in an economic perspective, on a macroeconomic perspective. But this action, remember, I always say, and that's what we can agree on, whether regardless of how you feel about these stories, the first horses bring the next horses, right? The first thing that happened was the plague, which created a lockdown. The lockdown forces the government to do what? Forces the government to print money. 40% of US dollars in existence were printed in the last 12 months. And this article was written in May 22nd, 2021. So think of it this way: from May 2020 to May 2021, 40% of all the US dollars were printed in just 1 year. So prior to 2020, it took you maybe 200 years to print US dollars, let's say to $1 trillion. And then in 1 year, you printed what you were able to do in 100 years, you did it in 1 year. These events, guys, have serious impact on our economy. Now, is America repeating the same mistake of 1921 Weimar Germany? Now, very early on in my financial journey, I got to Mike Maloney. Right, shout out to Mike Maloney. He was the one who is never met him. Right, I just follow his YouTube channel, but in his YouTube channel, I actually consider him a mentor because until I would listen to the work of Mike Maloney, I wasn't able to really puzzle how the world events affected my portfolio. But once I was able to follow his free videos on YouTube, I was really able to puzzle it out. And based on this, that's where the principles of wealth engineering came from. By listening, understanding, processing, and then putting this information into our real time and understand how it works. But when I was studying the history, doing my own research, and also listening to Mike Maloney, he talked a lot about what happened to the people of Weimar Germany. And to be honest with you, these stories gives me chills, guys. Like, I don't necessarily believe in reincarnation and all, but if there is one thing I can say is when I was listening to this story, I had a strange deja vu of as if I lived through it before. I couldn't explain why, but there was something very supernatural going with me as I was listening to those stories, and it was as if I was there. And I can't remember it, but I couldn't explain it in any way. But I would say that's probably as closest to uh, reincarnation experience I had go through. And what was happening to the people of Weimar, Germany? Their currency was called the marks was devalued. The government was printing money, printing money, printing money. Exactly what we're seeing right now. 40% of the entire currency supply printed in 1 year. So it took a couple years, but what happened is if everyone has $1 in their pocket and I'm selling this cup for $10, right? It will require 10 people to put $1 together to get this one cup, right? Or if someone gets lucky, they create wealth in some other ways, then maybe they create, let's say they create a remote. Everyone they sell this remote at $1. Everyone buys this remote at $1. Therefore, there is $10 worth of sales in those remotes. And then with this $10, now I have enough money to go buy this cup at $10, right? So it requires either more wealth, more product being added to the economy to generate wealth, or it requires people to put together to get enough money to buy this because everyone has one. This is 10. But if all of a sudden the government decides to print so much money that everyone has $10 in their pocket, well, now the price of this has to go up because the ratio was 10 to 1. Now it's 10 to 10. It doesn't work that way. It's 1 to 1. It doesn't work that way. So me, who created this, I know what the value is. It was 10 to 1. I'm going to raise the price 10 times so that I can still have the same ratio. Everyone has $10 in their pocket. They still have to put their $10 together to create $100 for me to swap that and give it to them. All right. It's the 10 to 1 ratio that I'm still maintaining. But instead of having $1 to 10, I'm having $10 to 100. So when you print more money, you force people that creates wealth in the economy to increase their prices to maintain the same ratio because that's how economy works. They're not doing it because they're greedy. That's the other thing. They're not raising prices because they're greedy. Because if they don't raise prices, they won't be able to afford the elements that was valuable to create this in the first place, right? They would not be able to do that. So that's why they have to raise the price because the price of everything rise, and they have to raise the price to maintain it. And remember, the first horse brings the next one. That's why I'm spending time explaining you this. You need to understand this. Right, so that's how it translates. The first source translate to what's happening right now. The plague forced us to create printed enough money, so much money that 40% of the entire US dollar supply in existence was printed in just 12 months. That means if we're maintaining the same ratio that I discussed, that means now it's not just the 40% that's the big problem. It's the time that it's done at, right? Like if we look at the day one of United States of the US dollars, and then now there's probably what 100%. I don't know how you're going to count the percentage of the time that the money was printed. It's probably, I don't know, 1,000,000%. Who knows? But it took 200 years to do, right? So the society was able to adapt to that. But once you do it, 40% of that in just 12 months, then you don't give enough time for society to adapt to it. And now the merchant has to raise their price at almost at the same rate. And that's why you hear now we're in double digit inflation, which is the true inflation. True inflation is more like 20%. But according to the government, we're more like 7.9%. They're calculating it in a different way so that they don't reveal and panic the world, because if they do, the market is going to crash. But first, what happened? The plague. Plague led to raise a huge number of unemployment. Governments, Canada, United States, they all were printing money to help their populations, right? Their populations sustain those moments. And what happens when you print more money? You raise the price of everything. Resource become more scarce, and when resource more scarce, what happens? It brings war, right? And now let's listen to what is the second horseman what has to say about all this. But without before I go any further, is there any question that I can go on the chat? The effect of CV-19 is not much different from the effect of Black Plague in Europe mm, in the 1400s. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. There's nothing new under the sun. Yes, absolutely. But you know what? I have a feeling that right now, the times that we're living in, they are, they may not necessarily be new, right? But they resembles a lot what's happening right now in the Revelation words. But let's see. Salute to you, Simsia. How are you doing? Nice to see you here. Let's get into it, guys. Let's get into it. What does the second horseman has to do with this?
Horseman, the rider of the red horse, is usually interpreted as representing war, and this is easy to understand why, given the line in 6:3 that reads, "Its rider was given power to take peace from the earth, and to make people kill each other." The bluntness of this description leaves little room for misidentification, or
Now,
even
to make people kill each other. That almost resembles like civil war, right? One thing that we can agree on is, hey, remember what happened? Remember what happened after CV-19, guys? Uh, right in April, May, George Floyd situation, right? It almost looks like it was a civil war creating itself, right? It didn't necessarily become violent, but it was definitely online. It was raging itself, right? Um, Definitely, people had some strong feelings about that, and we could say that a lot of the modern change that's happening right now is because of that. But again, if we're going back to what the conquest was supposed to be, false prophets, when you hear about Black Lives Matter and then how they end up taking a lot of this money, the leader is taking a lot of this money for their own gains, right? It's not necessarily a good thing. And then where that all of these works, where are they now? Are they making us better as people? Not necessarily. Yet the rich get richer. The rich get richer and the poor gets poorer. But we're gonna get into that. But civil war also, right? We could also say between Russia and Ukraine, they're not necessarily civil war, they're two sovereign countries, but there was a time they were part of the same country. They were part of the same country, and especially on the east side of Ukraine, most people relate more with Russia as opposed to Ukrainians. So it's almost like they're having a civil war themselves. And yet we for the last years we have a lot of civil war online versus Democrats and Republicans, right? And it started way before Trump, and then with Trump it definitely took a whole life on its own. There's a lot of internal conflict that are brewing, right? Hey, just the other day I find out that there is this new conflict brewing between black immigrants, right? And it's not and versus people that are native to United States. Call them they have different names called ADOS and then FBA. And then it seems that although road road to hell is always paved with good intention, a lot of these projects starts with great intentions, but they often change and have a different outcome, right? The road to hell is paved with good intentions. So things like this are going on all around the world for the last couple of years, and definitely CV-19 did not help make this become more peaceful. Now it led to a need for resources, that could say lead to war. And there are other things, there are other factors that are at play here when it comes to the Russian war. but eventually it's going to be a war of resources. Eventually, this is just started last month. It's new, but I argue that is definitely the writer of the war writer, the second writer of the apocalypse, definitely the financial apocalypse upon us right here. All right, let's go through this video and finish it.
Quite clearly see that the second horseman means business.
Mhm.
He does not in any way symbolize any form of goodness, nor is he attributed with any redeeming qualities. His objective is stated clearly, that he is a menace and he wants to spill blood.
Mm.
He is even presented with a sword in his description, furthermore facilitating his intentions for violence and mass slaughter.
Mhm.
The fact that he is described as fiery also tells us that he is volatile, that he is wild, and that he is not the sort of character that one can negotiate with.
Now, here's the thing. Again, these are not humans, right? The writer itself is not necessarily human. When they said fiery and volatile, don't think of it as a human. Think of it more as maybe a time. Maybe the time is volatile. Maybe the time is fiery, right? And one thing is clear, though the market is unclear right now of what's happening. And when market is unclear, uncertainty, fear, doubt crashes, right? But when we are in volatile times like this, especially in war, things can change at any minute, any seconds, any day. Things can change. You might think things will go one way, that the war is going to end by next month. And then next thing you know, another country gets involved, it becomes longer. It's a whole different mess, right? So these are volatile times. But whenever there is volatility, just like in the stock market, whenever there is volatility, there is opportunity, right? So, but you just need to understand what is it to come. But I just wanted to dive into that as well. Don't necessarily think of this writer as one human. Think of it as a symbolization of the time or an entity that is going to incentivize war, that's going to create war, that's going to trigger war. And I put Putin's face here because he's the one who will officially declare war on Ukraine and the world reacts. But I don't necessarily say he's the rider of this horse. Why? Because he was provoked to start the war. And that's the part that we don't hear in the Western media. He was provoked by who? He was provoked by none other than the United States. His request is so simple for the United States to abide on, and all it is make sure you say that you're not going to embark Ukraine as part of NATO, and that's all he asked. U.S. could have said that in paper, end of discussion, no war needed. But the first plague, your first horse, bring the next one. And why is the U.S. in a situation where they need war? Why? We're going to get into that. Let's listen to what war has to say.
His red colouring is also quite powerful, red being the colour of blood, and that red can invoke or represent a certain anger or intensity. In artwork, the second horseman is often seen holding his sword upwards, which you might say mirrors the same sort of pose a commander might strike before ordering his troops to stage an attack. Others have since seen the second horseman as a warrior, more specifically a Roman warrior, and that he represents the persecution of Christians by the Romans, hence the red colour that may have been linked to the Roman god of war Mars, who incidentally was also associated with the colour red. The third horseman, the rider of the
We're going to get into that. But, hey, declare war, right? Mr. Putin, declare war. But like I said, he's not necessarily alone in this. He's not declaring war out of no reason. The first horse brings the next horse. Now, one thing I want to explain very clearly. We talk about high unemployment rate, right? So economy, we kind of like a deflationary period where people are not spending money, people are saving everything they have, and the economy needs to be rolling. But how do you roll an economy when there is a lockdown and everyone is not going anywhere? People are worried. They're buying toilet papers, freaking out, right? Well, can't print more money, but they're printing more money, which we know is a problem because it's going to create high inflation. And but the problem is you're printing more money, people are still not spending. People are not spending. So what do? Do you print more money? Print more money, you print more money, which is how we end up with this. 40% of the US dollars printed in existence was printed in just 1 year, right? That's how we end up with this, right? But then the other thing that happened is because of CV-19, there was low velocity of money. What is velocity of money? It's how fast does $1 circulate in the economy. If I have $1, I'm giving it to a taxi driver. A taxi driver gives it to the grocery store. Grocery store gives it to a trucker. Trucker gives it to taxis. Like, this is velocity. And how fast this is happening is measured in economy and tracked as the velocity of money. When there is the CV-19, there's a lockdown. The velocity of money is slow because people are not going out. People are not spending money. People are not passing the money to the next person. And when the velocity of money is slow, that's part of the GDP calculation. The GDP is lower. It's not producing. It's a way to measure the health of an economy. If the GDP is low, it's not good. If you have two terms of the low velocity, which could lead to low GDP growth, that could lead to recession, and then longer that goes, that could lead to a depression, right? So we had a lower velocity of money in the 2020 and beginning of 2021 because of CV-19, which forces the government to print more money. Now, when people are coming out, spending the money, right, passing the money along, all those extra $10 that they got from the government, now they're passing it along. That's when the merchant is like, yo, my God, there is too much money. I need to raise the ratio, which in turns increase inflation. And we know high inflation destroys governments. High inflation also perks the bubble. And that's going putting Biden in a checkmate situation, regardless of what he does, is at risk of losing the next election because of high inflation. But what does history tells us? Let me look at you in the eyes as I say this. History always shows us the pattern, and it is whenever there is war, there is profit, right? Whenever there is war, there's something to gain out of it. Of course, there are the small souls that are part of it that's going to lose their life, that's going to lose their lifestyles, that's going to be very emotional. But the leaders at play, they're operating on different mindsets. They don't see it as human beings. They see it as profit. They see it as what can I gain for my people. And some can argue that they are evil. And maybe you have a point. But the more they can acquire for their country, the more the better the lifestyle of those citizens, right? It's the same mindset that Americans are enjoying their current lifestyle right now. If their governments all throughout the 20th century was not aggressive like that, they wouldn't have the lifestyle that we're able to enjoy for over 100 years. So, of course, on a human perspective, you're going to say these are evil things to do. You should not do that. But at the same time, are you going to sacrifice your current lifestyle, having the ability to eat 3 times a day? How many countries in the world can actually do that, right? Or if it wasn't a prior superpower or a image countries, like most countries are emerging, they're poor, they don't have the ability to have abundance of food like we do. If the entire world was living just like we're living in North America, we would need 5 Earths to have enough resources to feed the world. 5 planets just like Earth's in mining, in agriculture, in everything that we currently have right now to be able to feed the current population. not the population that's going to expand and double by 2050. No, it's the same current population right now. We would need 5 Earths, right? So we humans always had, especially those superpowers, especially the West, they always had an unlimited amount of desires for a limited amount of resources. And when you go back to inflation rising, when you go back to what Biden has to go through, and when he knows that, hey, the way that you change the public perceptions and make them feel, you know, that they should vote for you, go get a war. And how do you trigger a war? Well, you know this guy, all right? You know this writer right here. He made it clear his terms for war. Go, here's my red line. You cross it, we get into a war. And what do? They really boost Ukrainian's president ego to be like, "Don't worry, we got your back. We got your back. You come with us." And that was going too far, this guy intervened. Loss of life, war on both sides, sanctions on both sides affecting the people. But at the end of the day, what is he going after? Resources, profits, right? And more control. The more profit he has, guess what? The better is Russian people are going to be long term because they control the market that the entire world needs. And we're going to get into the market soon. But how do we get it? War. And the other world, the other countries will not necessarily let this happen. Right now, they're letting it play because it's Ukraine and they have something to gain out of it on a short term. But the minute Russia is going to be too powerful to control this, and especially the US, is going to cause a problem. And that's why it's a problem here, because Biden is in a situation that he needs war so that he can do what? He can has an excuse to print more money. And why does it need to print more money? To maintain the bubble that we have currently. And why does he want to maintain the bubble? Is because he want to maintain just long enough so that he can be re-elected. And by the second term, it doesn't matter if the bubble blows, but eventually he has an ego too. He doesn't want the bubble to bust on his watch. He wants it to go on the next president. So it's always a catch of, can I maintain this bubble as big as possible? And how do you maintain the bubble? By printing more money. But eventually it gets to a point where he has to control inflation. He has to control the money printing. And inflation is going to target him one way or another. So he's in a checkmate situation. He's only trying to buy more time. That's the game he's playing right now with this Russian-Ukrainian war. He's using that as a way to buy more time to control the levers of printing money, not printing too much, not printing in still print more than you need, so that you can give it back to the people in the form of checks, making them feel like you're helping them in those high inflation time. But how did the inflation happen? Is by his own doing of printing money, and also the previous president that had to print money, right? That's why inflation is happening. So the first plague is definitely leading to the next plague, which is the war. The war is not necessarily a war of between Ukraine and Russia. It is a war of resources. It is a war of power. It is a war to make sure that you can maintain the current lifestyle that you are enjoying in the West. And that can lead to a world war. To a world war where there is both civil unrest and there is unrest countrywide. We're already seeing the puzzle being placed. We're going to get into that later too. But that's the second horseman of the financial apocalypse, because more war requires more money. More money will create that bubble bigger, and everything that rises has to fall. The bigger the bubble, the harder to fall. That's what we're heading. So that's why I call it a financial apocalypse, because before we may have a recession, before we may have a depression, and then for every 10 recession, we may have one depression, right? But this time, the bubble is so big that when it falls, and it will fall, when it falls, it's not just going to lead to a recession. It is not just going to lead to a recession, to a depression. It is also going to lead to what I call the financial apocalypse, right? Who is the third horseman? The third horseman. Let's get into it. But first, very quickly, let me see if there is any comments in there. The velocity of money is high speed. Yes. Right now it is. But there was a time it wasn't, right? 2020 it wasn't. Velocity of money was slow, which encouraged the governments to print more money. And that's how we end up with a scenario like this, right? The 40%. It's chain reaction. It's not required. It's not giving them the what they expected. They print more. They print more. They print more. But you cannot retract all the money you printed. Now that money exists, and then you have high velocity, huh? That's why the inflation is also rising high. You see, the inflation didn't start rising when you were printing the money. Why? Because the velocity of money was slow. But now that the velocity of money is high, is rising, inflation is also rising month after month after month. So that's why Biden is in a situation where he has both inflation rising, right? And he's dealing with the money printing situation that he creates it. And he's like, I need something to buy more time, force this war to happen. Right? And then remember, the war that is happening right now is just doing sanctions. Sanction is benefiting who? Hey, benefiting probably his kid because his kid is still operating on the I don't know if his kid is still operating there, but when it comes to oil and natural gases and energy, Russia is still doing business. They have sanction on anything else, but they're still supplying the world oil, and we'll get into that later of fertilizers too. But who is the next horseman? And remember, first horseman was the plague, CV-19. Second horseman was the war. I argue we already started World War III, but we can argue that right now, Mr. Putin declared a war. Now, who is the next horseman? Famine. Famine is the next horseman. And I put right then in my thumbnail, incoming. Are we already leaving the effects of the third horseman? Who is the third horseman? Let's get into it. Let's get into it.
Hence the red colour that may have been linked to the Roman god of war Mars, who incidentally, the rider of the black horse, is commonly referred to as famine, and we understand this for a few reasons. First of all, John tells us that the third horseman carries a pair of scales in his hand, which may allude to the way in which food would be measured out during times of famine. Of all the horsemen, though, it is
Hey, remember I was telling you how you have to measure the price of anything when inflation rises? It's a ratio, it's a balance, right? If there is X amount of dollars in existence, you need to have the product, the resource that you need, respecting the same ratio, right? The balance. Let's get into it, guys.
only the rider of the black horse that is accompanied by a voice, which John hears from the four creatures that are present in heaven. 2 pounds of wheat for a day's wages, and 6 pounds of barley for a day's wages, and do not damage the oil and the wine, they announce. And given the meagre amounts that are suggested here for a day's worth of wages, it's clear to see how this horseman came to represent famine. It's implied that under these conditions of trade, one would certainly struggle to sustain themselves, let alone their families. Do not damage the oil and wine, the creature announces at the end of the sentence, and by this it can be derived that while the price of wheat and barley increases, the price of oil and wine remains the same, leading some to believe that this is because oil and wine were commodities of the rich, and that it would furthermore increase the divide between the wealthy and the poor, which would generate resentment. It implies that the rich will maintain that which they have and continue to thrive, but the poor will suffer more and more, something you might say is happening today in terms of standards
Of
of living.
living. All right, guys. Isn't it true that we're going through this already, right? Look at Mr. Elon Musk, and shout out to him. I actually think he deserves all that money. The only probably billionaire that I think deserves it. Well, not no, the only, but you know. Anyway, I won't even get into that. But the rich are getting richer, and the poor are getting poor, right? According to the rich, and especially that they invest in what is true money. When they invest in something that is maintaining its purchase power over time, they're not necessarily losing their purchase power. They're not. It's maintaining its purchase power over time. So if they had $10 before this happened, at the end of the event, they still have $10 worth of purchase power. Versus if you had $10 worth of currency and then you only invested in currency, well, your currency was able to buy $10 worth of food today, but maybe tomorrow it's going to buy $6 worth of food, especially if 40% of money gets printed in 1 year. It might take 2, 3 years, but over that time, what you were able to buy for $10, you're going to need maybe $14 to get it, right? Maybe with $10 now you can only eat what you could buy for $6 3, 4 years ago. So that the rich are getting richer, but they're not just getting richer, they're also maintaining their purchase power because they invest in what? They invest in what is truly valuable. And that was the same trend in the Roman times too. And some people are actually making the connection that those horses was symbolizing the end of the Roman times. But like Miss Adrian said, nothing is new under the sun. And what is happening right now with the Romans is definitely a modern day of what's happening now. It's kind of like we are the modern day Romanian in the West, and we know how it ended for these people, right? It's not all this doesn't necessarily mean death of human life. It could also be a death of era, right? But before the death of an era, what do you see? The plague, the war, civil and international war, famine, and the rest. Let's finish to it and then let's go through the data.
By this, some argue that the divide between the rich and the poor is a direct correlation to how far along we are to these end times, and that if the divide continues, it may warrant a visit from famine and the other horsemen, thus triggering the cycle of the end times. Another case is that the oil and wine are left alone to serve as a cruel irony that may torture mankind, that while they can keep their wine and possibly even drink themselves into a state of merriment, they will still die as a result of starvation.
Mm.
Furthermore, wine and oil are not necessities to human nutrition, but wholesome wheat and other crops at the time would have been vital. By this, the ignoring of oil and wine is simply because the horseman knows that humans can live without it, and therefore doesn't bother trying to take it away from them. Others see the fact of oil and wine being left alone is so that Christianity can be preserved, given that oil and wine are both used in some sacraments and worship. The fourth horseman who rides the pale horse
Interesting.
is simply
Now, for the four horsemen, we're gonna get into that, but we can all agree that the third horseman is famine. And remember, I said um, the first horse brings the next horse, and the second horse is going to bring the third horse. Famine. It's my nice plant here that is surviving in a very dry area, and I say incoming. But I can argue that we're already living the effects of this because inflation is rising so hard and so fast. This horse right here came with intensity, right? That this horse is coming also with the same intensity. And let me give you another perspective of this. This guys, I was doing research and I was surprised to even hear this. like this video was released like March 25th, like a couple days ago, right? And then it's like, we may not have enough food. This is a crazy title to hear. We may not have enough food, but let's listen to it, guys.
Look like by then. We're already speeding toward dystopia. Not that the White House seems aware of it or to care in any way. Here's Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen from this morning, for example, letting you know it's time to stop whining about gas prices because actually they're not very high.
How high do you think oil prices can get?
Actually, wait.
At the pump?
Listen, there's a lot of uncertainty about it. They're not as high in real terms as they were.
Talking about flying cars.
All right. I think I missed the clip. I'm going to rewind it back, but very quickly, I saw a comment. I saw comments there. I wanted to address. Salute to you, Mr. Peter Investor M. Thank you for being here. Salute. With the proliferation of genetically modified or engineered seeds, along with the wealthy and buying lands of farmland, yes, Mr. Bill Gates, for example, Mr. Bill. Warren Buffett. These are people, they buy lots of farmland, and in times like this, they can control the price, supply, demand. They can control a lot. They have a lot of power in their hands, right? We're going to have to go with the wheel, especially Mr. Bill Gates is a little bit scary with that. But this is actually worse than this, because that was always the case. They were always buying land. It's not the point, and the point here. What I'm trying to say is this: certain world events is going to cut the supply and increase the demand. And what does that do? It increases the price of food. Shout out to you, Mr. Peter Investor M. Thank you for sponsoring this stream as of now. $2.5. No comment. Just the super chat. Just love. Thank you very much. But I wanted to hear you guys from Joe Biden. And sorry, guys, I was preparing the clips earlier. I missed it, but here it is.
Anymore. Here's Joe Biden from yesterday.
With regard to food shortage, yes, we did talk about food shortages, and it's going to be real. The price of these sanctions is not just imposed upon Russia; it's imposed upon an awful lot of countries as well, including European countries and our country as well. And
here's the question: is the United States is feeling the sanctions at the same level as the other countries part of NATO, right? Is it the same? I don't know, but it's definitely saying it's okay. You know, we're here to feel we gotta survive. We gotta maintain and sustain those pains, but he's not necessarily enjoying the pain at the same rate as the other ones.
Because both Russia and Ukraine have been the breadbasket of Europe in terms of wheat, for example. Just give one example.
Food shortages, Biden said, quote, they're going to be real. Once again, in case you missed it, to repeat, food shortages, not in Sudan, in Cincinnati. And
oh, this is so funny, man. Screw you, Mr. Trucker. What do you mean not in Sudan? What? But I mean, does it mean that it's normal for countries like Sudan to always go through famine and then food shortages? Who knows, right? Who knows? But interesting. Not in Sudan, but in Cincinnati.
In Spokane and Norfolk, and of course in our big cities too, where not a single person who was born here has any idea what a food shortage is. Our problem has always been having too much food. Now we won't have enough. We know that because the president of the United States.
Yep. So again, are we living already in? Is this guy already here? Because if the world superpower, United States, is already expecting not to have enough food, what about the small ones? What about the smaller countries? Right? What about the smaller countries? Let's listen to it.
States just told us that on camera. So what is this going to mean? How do food shortages affect a country? Well, if you're interested, go online and read about it. All of recorded history will answer your question. A food shortage is not like deciding to skip dessert. It's not a diet. It's not voluntary.
Oh man. I mean, if you grew up in the poor countries, you're realizing the kind of like the uh, the abundance that the West country has, especially the United States and Canada. But man, we don't even know what dessert is in the poor country. If you have just food one time a day, you have more than enough food. Because some people are able to live 2-3 days without eating anything, just drinking water, and then later they have like maybe 4 meals a week. So you guys talking about skipping dessert, but now they're talking about like, hey, maybe it's not going to be like skipping dessert. Maybe it's going to be more. But my question to you is the same. If even the United States are starting to change their narrative, they're starting to change their mindset about what food shortage is, changing from an abundance mindset into a scarcity mindset. What about the smaller countries?
A food shortage is different. It's scary. Food shortages topple governments. They turn moderates into revolutionaries. A food shortage is a big deal. You don't want one. But now we're getting one, just a little over a year into Joe Biden's presidency. Think forward. If the traditional calendar holds, we've got 1,032 days left of the Joe Biden administration. And you wonder what things will look like by then. We're already speeding toward dystopia. Not that the White House seems aware of it or to care.
Stop it, man. Stop it, Mr. Trucker, man. Stop it. Sheesh. This guy really doesn't like Biden, does he? But man, great point. Great point. Time to say goodbye to soda. Sheesh. I don't think it's going to be that bad, but who knows? This is the foreshadowing of what's to come to everywhere in social media. You add about the survival and telling us to stock up on food supply. Yes, yes. And especially this, when it comes to social media, we definitely glorify this culture of abundance, right? That's basically what social media is. What goes viral is when you show like a ridiculous amount of anything, right? If you have money and you spread it all over your bed, that's going to go viral. It's food, right? It's like those close-up pictures on food. It's funny because Roman Empire had this exact same thing. They had a fascination with food as well. They didn't have Instagram, right? But they also had a fascination with food as well towards the end. And again, a lot of these stories, especially when it comes to the horsemen, some people say that, hey, they symbolize the end of the Roman Empire. But hey, I can argue that the parallels between the Romans and now are high. But if the United States is starting to, the president, the leader who's supposed to instill confidence, reassure the nation, is talking to NATO, all the other countries, all the other superpowers of the world. We're talking about the G7 countries, for example, right? He's talking about, hey, we're going to have a food shortage too, but let's brace ourselves to survive that so that we can affect who? The guy that we forced to have a war in the first place. What a life. What a life. And it's not just the US, guys. Look at this. Look at this. This is the president of China, right? President of China, Xi Jinping, admits China could face a severe food crisis in 2022. What did I say earlier? I see the war, regardless of what you think the intention is right now, it's going to end up to be what? To be a war of resources. There are two things that are always fundamental to wars. War is a racket to make more profit for the powers that be, like the banks, for example, like the arms dealers, like the politicians to get something out of it. And war is also a war of resources. To the winners goes the spoil. What are the spoil of war? The resources that you get for free after you bash, you destroy, you delete the population that you're invading. And we're seeing that right now, happening right now in Ukraine and Russia. What are the resources of Ukraine? Ukraine is one of the leaders when it comes to wheat, exporting wheat worldwide. They have enough land, agriculture land, to feed 600 million people. They have a lot of resources on all aspects that are high value, and it's a shame when you have a country that is so rich in resources yet so poor in defense. And they were not always the case. They were rich in arms as well to defend themselves, but because they were sold the ability of peace, they decided to get rid of their arms. And the minute you do that, you're at the mercy of people who have arms, like Russia or United States. So there's a lot of lessons in this. But now we're in a situation where the first horse brought the second horse. Biden incentivized Putin to start this war. Putin started this war, creates a scenario where food crisis is at bay, because that was before this article came, before the war. Now what happens after the war is sanctions. And look at this, guys. Look at this. Fertilizer prices just hit a record high, sparking fear of global starvation and the worst food insecurity level since World War II. That's why I'm saying, guys, this what we're currently seeing right now is already World War III. It's already World War III. We're just not seeing it yet. And World War III, a world war can last multiple years. By the time we call it World War III, we might be 3-4 years into it. What's currently being developed right now is not a short-term thing. It is a long-term thing, and it will have long-term impact. Starting with this, inflation. Inflation is going to raise the price of what? Commodities. And on top of that, you have war. What did the war do? Forces the Russians to control the fertilizer prices, right? Shout out to there's a Facebook group that I follow. It's called the Black Traders Club. And someone in this group, let's just call him Jerry. I don't know if he wants his whole name there, but he's definitely a intelligent brother who look a lot at the macroeconomic aspects, right? And he shared a chart, a meme, but it's based on data. And he shared this, and I wanted to share it with you guys. What famine looks like in one single chart. In green, we're looking at the price of fertilizers. In food, we're looking at the price of food. Sorry, in white, we're looking at the price of food. And you see, starting 2021, food started growing, right? And it also fertilizers started growing. So what happened in 2020? Plague. Plague leads what? To war. But the plague created what? Inflation scenarios where you printed so much money that you had to raise the price of commodities. The price of commodities goes first, and then when the price of commodities like oil, for example, goes higher, then the rest, food, goes higher with it. But it becomes a lot harder and a lot harder to supply the fertilizer that were already produced. And it also becomes a lot harder to even produce them because everything else is locked down. So the higher the price of fertilizer goes, the higher food price goes. And it's not just the fertilizer that controls this. Think of transportation also. The higher oil price goes high, the higher food price will go higher. I mean, the food price will go higher because of that. So you have two very important factors driving food prices alone. And remember, the rich get richer, the poor gets poorer. You have food price increasing and you have your purchase power decreasing. What does that is going to result in? Mr. Fourth, Mr. Third Rider of the financial apocalypse, famine, who coincidentally resembles to the third rider of the biblical stories apocalypse, famine. All right? Are we living in biblical times? Is what current events that we're seeing right now, were they predicted 2,000 years ago? Who knows? But one thing is clear, there is a awfully resemblance between those biblical stories and what's currently happening right now. And one thing is clear, second, one horseman always brings the next in those apocalypse times. And what is clear is Russia right now, who declared the war, is also controlling the fertilizer prices across the world, which will result to what? A chart like this. Higher the food prices, lower your money can buy with inflation, famine. I have another chart for you that is even more like scary in my opinion. But let me go to the chat very quick. I've been slacking. All right. Let's see. Carl Black, how are you doing? Dame, I salute you. Wealth Engineering, salute to you. Thank you very much for being here. Salute. Watch the movie Training Day. Yeah, you got the money, you got the ammo. Your money may money because you can't project what you got. Training Day, man. Classic movie. Classic movie. You may not be able to eat for days, but can't survive without drinking water. Absolutely. Absolutely. Peace and positive vibration to my people. Positive vibration as well. At the end of the day, we're here to understand what's happening here and understand how we can be on top of it, right? If we can see what's happening and we accept that these are happening, and we're not looking at just the Bible here, we're looking at actual world events that is application and accept it, right? We have no control over it. However, we can only focus on what we can control, and we can control on how we think, we can control on the actions we take, and we can control on how we decide to manage our portfolios. And at the end of the day, if you can act just like the rich, you invest in things that are gaining value over time, that are maintaining their value over time, you can be on top of the situation and still end up finding money to pay for food and take care of your family. So that's what we're here to do. And shout out to you, Citizen M. Thank you for being here. The key is to have land, food, water, mineral resources. Absolutely. You have to go back to the fundamentals, needs, not want. What are your take on Toronto housing and surrounding market as it was interested buying my first place? Topic for another day. But very quickly, I did live in Toronto myself. I went viral as a millennial who couldn't buy a house, and we were well in the middle class. Being my wife, so it's still the case. We're actually selling our condo right now at profit, but I don't want to buy a place. My wife wants. Whatever, we'll see how it goes. But me, I would say it's like any other investments, right? For me, I would say I don't like buying investments at the top of a market. I like to buy them at the bottom of a market. And then I would rather pay, and when it comes specifically to real estate, I would rather pay rent. They don't have to pay property tax, wait for the market to catch itself, and then invest in the market when it's low. Because what I don't want to happen is buy the market at the top, and we're seeing the financial apocalypse upon us, right? Eventually, we have the everything bubble. In 2008, we had the real estate bubble. And now we have the everything bubble. We have the bubble in fertilizer price. We have a bubble in gas price. We have a bubble in bond, bubble in stocks, technology stocks, right? Bubble in cryptocurrencies, bubble everywhere. Real estate. So when the financial apocalypse will collapse, because we have been pumping money so much into it, is going to bring all those bubbles down, all of them down, including real estate. So I do not want to buy a property, bare 3-bedroom houses at $800,000 Canadian, only for it to drop at $300,000 its normal price. Right? And then I'm going to be locked in for 30 years paying $800,000 when its original price was supposed to be 200,000 in the first place. All I'm going to do is buy time and wait for it to crash, or just rent. As long as I have a shelter over my head, I'm good. That's the main important thing. It's the shelter. It's not the owning the house that is important. It's the shelter. But you need to understand the uncontrollable forces that can affect your wealth. And what are they? They are the macroeconomic aspects, like the moves between countries that has its direct impact in your portfolio, in your wallet, and in your table. Shout out to famine. Shout out to the third writer of the financial apocalypse, famine. Right? I'm gonna get into another chart, guys. I want to go very quickly, but thank you for your question, Mr. Citizen M. I hope I addressed it. And if you like, please make sure you hit the like button. And also, any super chats is welcome if you appreciate the answer. Right? Yes, Card Black. Yes, we are living in combination of biblical times with man-made BS to speed up the Great Reset plan, which will fail. I hope you're right, Mr. Call Black. I hope the Great Reset plan fails. People don't like nothing to come out. Let's put it this way. I would have a plan for it not to fail, and I would have a plan for when it fails. How about that? That ways you covered both ways. You know what I'm saying? But interesting. I hope it fails. How many losing value, but it's still taxed? It is still taxed at the same rate, is it? And guess what? They're going to increase taxes because your money doesn't has the same value. So they need more tax income so to have the same purchase power. So that's another reason why increase taxes. The WEF is really the Bilderberg's group under another name trying to steal more of the global population's wealth. Yeah. Also bubble on taxes. Yep, bubble on taxes. But those never. You're right. You're so right. Those never collapse. But you know what? In a situation like this, when we have a financial collapse, there might be some adjustment, but it's still going to be too high for our liking. All right. Let's see very quickly. There are 18 years of real estate cycles. Last one was 2008 to plus 18 2026. Next one or not. Definitely one of the longest one. One of the longest one, right? If you think about it, real estate, the previous cycle, right? Let's think of it as prior to 2008. When was the previous cycle started? It was right after 2001. Right after 2001, we had we had the stock market bubble. Then I argue that the demographic was a huge part of that. Switch to real estate, which was definitely less than 18 years, right? We're talking about barely 9 years, half of that time that you mentioned. So, but definitely one of the longest one. And the reason why it's that long is because of the money printing that we're doing. We've been printing so much money, creating that bubble, and that money we printed so much money that it created a bubble and everything, right? The bubble is the reason why Amazon recently did a stock split. I recently tried to buy some via Bank and they ran out of. Wow. People loading up on metals. Absolutely. Salute, Mr. Paris. All right, guys. So there is another chart I wanted to show you. And to me, this chart is scary. Scary chart. Right? And it's a simple chart, but it's a scary. And that I want you to understand the information I'm going to give you. It's a random information that you could have Googled, but I want you to puzzle it in everything we've been discussing right now. Ready, guys? Are you ready? Top fertilizer exports by countries. Top fertilizers export by countries. All right? Now you can read through all this article. Sure, right now. I'm going to skip to the top 30 ones. And look who is first. And I think this is like a 2020 chart. Look who is first. Russia is first. 12% of the world's export fertilizers are done by Russia. We are playing with danger here, guys. This war happening between Ukraine and Russia, and NATO countries wants to be involved in it, applying sanctions to them. We're playing with danger. Because if Russia any day decides to say, you know what, we're just going to stop exporting to other countries. And you know what? They don't even have to place it as a threat. That's the beauty of this. They don't have to place it as a threat, because if they put it as a threat, they're going to create enemies all around the world. So it's not in their advantage to place it as a threat. All they can say is, you know what? The sanctions that we got from who? The third exporter of fertilizers, the fourth exporter of fertilizers, right? And other countries and NATO is forcing us to reduce our supply of fertilizers. It affects our ability to keep up the same momentum, right? Now, look who's second, China. Now, in your opinion, is China going to deal with Canada and United States, or China is most likely to deal with Russia? We are heading towards dangerous time, guys. And this is one of the most basic resources that we need to feed our population. We're talking about food. We're not talking about oil that we can drink. Fertilizers, we can drink fertilizers, but fertilizers are used to grow what? Food, tomatoes, vegetables, fruits. Number one and number two world countries that exporting fertilizers across the world are who? Russia and China. This is scary, guys. Together, there are well over 22% of the entire world's market when it comes to who? Feeding the world. Now, you add that with Saudi Arabia, right? You have a problem. Now you have 3 countries on the top 10 that can have serious impact on changing the world and controlling the price of fertilizers. And just war with one of them alone creates a chart like this, right? War with just one country alone, sanction against one country alone, gives you this. And what did Biden say? Biden said China last weekend, this weekend actually. China, make sure you don't interfere with this Russian war. Why? Because we're going to give you the same sanctions too. And what is that sanctions going to do? It's going to accelerate the price of what? Fertilizers, which will increase the price of what? Food, which will increase the price of what? Grocery stores, groceries that you're going to. And remember what the first horse brought to us. He brought to us this. This is just like saying 1 + 1 = 2. Printing money in short amount of time, printing this amount of money in this short amount of time is equal to high inflation in a short amount of time. Meaning, going back to this chart, food prices are going higher because of fertilizer cuts, supply in the world, because of war, sanctions. Inflation is going to buy less food per dollar, and the food prices are going higher because of fertilizers. This is one of the scariest chart I've ever seen. And it's not that chart that I'm scared of. It's this. Let me share it with you again. This. Russia number 1, fertilizer exports. China number 2, fertilizer exports. This is a scary chart because both of these countries right now, US are being aggressive when it comes to sanctions. They're not talking peacefully with these two countries. They're talking aggressively. And let me tell you right now, the US is not in a situation where they can interfere, they can talk strong with these two countries when it comes to food. Look at where the US is. Even Canada, a country that is 10 times less people in Canada than the States, there is about 35 million people in Canada. There is 350 million people in the United States. Yet Canada is the number three fertilizer exports in the world. United States is the fourth. Part of that is they have a huge population that they have to supply in, and they still have to keep some of that to export and make money. But I bet you if these two countries started affecting it, it's going to severely act and increase the price of food in the United States. And they may not have enough fertilizers to supply the food for their population. And that's also going to affect these people here, Canada too. So my question to you is, did I choose the wrong word here when I said incoming? Is the third horseman of the financial apocalypse is already upon us? Is the third horseman of the biblical stories of the apocalypse is already upon us? Food for thought. Let's get into it. All right. Is India part of the top 10s? Let me go check again. I don't think so. Thank you again, Mr. Peter Investor M, for another super chat. Thank you for sponsoring this stream. Always appreciate it. This is another reason why Vladdy don't care for some of the worthless sanctions. It's all about balance. As we speak, President Z is laughing at Sleepy Joe. Absolutely. Because what? They control them not just by the balls, by the stomach, which is a much slower way of feeling pain, which is going to inflict pain on just the population, and the population is going to demand the head of its leaders. But how is he fighting that? By printing more money and giving you money so that you can go and buy the high expense food. They want to do that in California. They're talking about $500 a month. In Montreal, we're already talking about $500 a month to help you pay for high price gases. And what does that do? Create more money, printing more money, which is going to do what? Increase inflation higher, which is going to do what? Reduce your purchase power even lower, faster than you can save it, right? If it takes you 2 weeks to get a paycheck, in that 2 weeks, if you're printing money at this rate, it's going to seriously affect your purchase power at the end of that 2 weeks. You would be much rather get your entire paycheck for the year in day one, January 1st, and then put that in gold or put that in something else other than stocks. How about like stable coins that gives you 10% a year, and then use that money on a 2-week basis to buy groceries? You would be much better than waiting 2 weeks to get your paycheck and then risking losing inflation purchase power in that 2 weeks. This is how crazy inflation is going to rise, guys. Scary times. But if we've seen it ahead, there are ways that we can plan for it. We're going to get into that as well. It's not all about doomsdays, guys, here. We're going to give you solutions as well. But great point, Mr. Carl Black. Great point. Go ahead and sanction China and watch those store shelves dry. This is a paper tiger. Absolutely. And they're talking about more tranche of sanctions. I own the stocks of the largest fertilizer company, Nutrien. Yes, it's been doing great for me. Keep it, buy more. That's one of the advice I'm going to have for people here today. So great investments right here. Me too. I work in the agriculture, and then I work right now in my startups. We're working on working with this company here. So yeah, I'm very big company. It's not just fertilizers. They're number one in a lot of things. All right, guys, let's get into it. Now, who is the fourth fourth horseman of the financial apocalypse. To understand the fourth horseman of the financial apocalypse, again, just like I've been doing all night, we have to bring it back to those biblical times. To those biblical times to understand what the end of days, what symbolize the fourth horseman of the apocalypse. Let's get into it, guys. Are you ready? Are you ready? Let's get into it.
Now we come to the challenging green horse. In order to understand how green is associated with death, we need to look at all four colored horses together because, frankly, green is the color of life. But when we look at all four colors together, an amazing pattern develops. Once you see this pattern, you won't be able to unsee it.
Oh, before I show you this, I gotta show you another one. I think I went ahead of myself. I gotta show you another video here because oh man, I gotta let's just say I have a surprise for you, but I almost screwed up my surprise. I almost screwed up my surprise, guys. Ooh. I gotta ease up before I show you that, right? I gotta ease up. But let me see here. Let's go to the Fourth Horseman. Yeah. I'm going to set up the other part of the video I wanted you to see. And then we're gonna, because we need to understand better, before I showed you that, we need to understand better who's the Fourth Horseman. So let's go through that same video again we were watching earlier. They're gonna go through the Fourth Horseman and we're gonna break it down.
Horse is simply named as Death, and he is the only member of the horsemen who is given a name. I looked, and there before me was a pale horse. Its rider was named Death, and Hades was following close behind him. They were given power over a fourth of the earth to kill by sword, famine, and plague, and by the wild beasts of the earth.
Now, here's the interesting thing. And here's a question for you tonight. Did we had 4 individual horsemen of the apocalypse yet? Or did we had them a long time ago and right now what we're currently seeing is the fourth horseman of the apocalypse? Because look, one thing that he's doing, and you could argue that he's taking the power of the first 3 to all at once, right? For each one of them brought one thing to the table. This guy is bringing all 3 things to the table. And what are we talking about here? Famine, plague, and sword. Sword is war. Famine is the third one. Plague is the first one, right? All at once. So remember 2020, we had the plague. 2022, we have the war. And we're also having famine starting right now. Right now, remember, we will talk about this. Fertilizer prices just hit record high, sparking fears of global starvation. And the worst food insecurity since the insecurity levels since World War II, right? We're talking about big countries like this. China are still worried about severe food crisis. And we went over United States was also expecting food shortage, right? We went over that earlier today. If you were just joining, we went over all that. These are each of them horses of the financial apocalypse, which coincidentally resembles the horses of the biblical times. But you see a flag here. You see a question mark here. My question to you now is, are we seeing the 4 horses already about to come? Or did we see the 3 individual horses in a very short amount of time? That's my question, because the 4 horses is called Death, brings all 3, swords, famine, and plague all at once. And this is written in the Bible. The first horses was called Conquest. It's not specific that it brings the plague. It's based on interpretation that others says, yes, maybe they bring the plagues. But for the 4th horseman, it is specific. It says plague, famine, and sword. And coincidentally, we can see all those 3 things are kind of like what we agreed on for the first 3 horsemen. So death of what? Is it death of human beings? Is it the death of an economic era? Is it a death of an empire? Right? That's the thing we have to think about. Let's go into it.
You may also notice, based on the passage, Death is the only horseman who does not come equipped with something in his hands, whether this be a weapon or otherwise. You might say that Death is the weapon himself. Instead, he is accompanied by Hades, which in Christian beliefs is a state of place of departed spirits, and not the Greek god of the underworld, although that might have looked pretty cool. Some illustrations see Death carrying a scythe, though the Bible makes no mention of this. Death may be the most mysterious of the horsemen, given that he doesn't have much of a description. In fact, the only thing that is really described about him is his horse, which is pale, which many may attribute to the color of a corpse. Death's role appears to be quite obvious. He is there to either kill or to collect the souls of the dead. An interesting idea is that Death's presence is here to seek out the Romans, and along with the other horsemen, are to bring about the judgment of God. The death in this case isn't just a mortal death, but also a death of an era, more specifically, the death or dissolution of the Roman Empire.
All right. That's what I wanted to get at. That's what I'm saying. It's not necessarily human beings. It could be an era. And we can go into that if you guys want. I can make a specific episode on the resemblance between the Roman era and also what we're currently seeing. Shout out to you, Randy K. Williams. How are you doing? Hello, everyone. Hello to you too. Nice to see you here. I haven't seen you in a while, or I haven't seen you here before, but I'm happy you're here. Make sure you hit the like button and hope to see you more. Hope to see you more. Now, we've seen who is the fourth horseman. Fourth horseman is dead. And fourth horsemen bring plagues, sword, and a famine together, right? Now, let me introduce to you the other part of the video I wanted to share with you guys. It's a very interesting part. But first, let me go very quickly. There's a lot of political turmoil in Pakistan. What about Iran? Actually, you did ask me a question too, sir. Let me go very quickly. And yes, I don't think India is part of the top 10 world fertilizers. They actually probably need more fertilizers than anyone else. Huge population, emerging countries. So they wouldn't be at that level. So you see, top 10, India is not part of this. But look, is there. Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is there. And if I had to scroll down, even in the top 30 countries, I do not see India. I do see Iran, however, right? Which could be very interesting, in what I have to share with you. But they're basically saying it could be an end of an era. It could represent what we saw earlier. But what about this, guys? Let's see what this has to say. Let's listen to this. A second.
These colors almost look like a flag, made up of 4 colors, white, red, black, and green. In fact, they look like some familiar flags, don't they? Which flags are white, red, black, and green? Here are the flags of the countries that surround Israel. In our series on Daniel,
very quickly, I wanted to say that this video was making a case, and I have the link in the description below. They're making a case that the horsemen, when it comes to the color, the fourth horsemen, it's the color means greens, and it's a specific type of green. They make a great thesis on why they believe the green, but you guys can listen to it. But basically, they understand that it's not just pale color; it's green color, which coincidentally means color of life. But we're going to get into it.
We propose that these same countries will comprise the Beast Empire. So the flags of the countries that will constitute the beast are white, red, black, and green. All the nations that we propose to be the 10 horns have flags made up of combinations of these colors. Is this coincidence? Or is it prophecy? I think the answer lies in the color of the mysterious chloros, green death horse. Green is the color of Islam. It was supposedly Muhammad's favorite color. The Islamic prophet is said to have worn a green cloak and a turban, and his writings are full of references to the color. A passage from the Quran describes paradise as a place where people will wear green garments of fine silk. In our Bible, we understand that Christians will wear white garments in heaven, but the Islamists are looking forward to green. So I have a question for you. Why else would God color a death horse vibrant grass green, normally a color of life? I think everyone who favors a European or American Antichrist needs to answer why the fourth death horse is a vibrant green color. God is obviously communicating something by choosing that very unnatural color.
All
So,
right. You guys can listen to it at the rest, but I wanted to get into that. And to me, when I saw this, I was like, oh Lord, no. I was like, oh no, oh no, the Fourth Horses is already here. I was like, oh my God. I need a soundtrack, guy. I need more super chat because at some point again I'm going to buy a sound effect, guys, and then make those. Oh my God! But I definitely would want to play that sound effect right now when I saw this, because man, this is scary. This is scary. Let's walk back to this top fertilizer export country, export by country. The main players are these four, right? But somewhere along the list is Saudi Arabia. Now, top 10 supplying 2% of the world's fertilizer. It's enough to make some trouble, but not that much. Until you realize Saudi Arabia is not just playing a smaller role on the famine situation when we talk about the financial the horsemen that are going to bring the financial apocalypse. No, Saudi Arabia is not just playing a small factor when it comes to famine. Saudi Arabia is not also playing a factor in dealing with Putin. And I don't know how they relate to this, but one thing is clear is they are holding the United States power right now and for the last 50 years that allows them to print so much money to deal with this horse. So if they decide to remove that power away from United States, then it's as if that small horse here is going to bring all three together. Because one thing is clear, if Saudi Arabia is removing this from the US, if we think what's happening right now is bad with the Ukrainian Russia war, it's going to get far worse when Saudi Arabia decides to join who? Putin. When Saudi Arabia decides to join who? China. And guess what? It is currently in discussion as we speak. As we speak. If you don't believe me, let me find find the article so that I can break it down for you guys. Let me find the article because you might think I'm reaching. You might think I'm reaching. Let me pull it up for you guys. Look at this. Why it matters if Saudi Arabia sells oil in Chinese yuan instead of the US dollars. Right? March 15, 2022. What has happened there? Saudi Arabia consider accepting yuan instead of dollars for Chinese oil sales. What did I say? I say Saudi Arabia is holding what? The US power. The only reason why US dollars is the world reserve currency is because of the agreement Saudi Arabia had with the US in the 1971. What was that agreement? All all of the oil sales needs to happen in US dollar and in US dollars only. That made sure every other countries in the world wanted to store US dollars so that they can buy what? The premier resources that they need to get their population alive, to get the economy running. Oil. It's not even food. It's with more oil you can generate more food. A lot of the fertilizers use oil products. Like so many things comes from oil. It is the premier resource. And the fact that the United States is controlling the premier resources by making a deal with Saudi Arabia to enforce sales in US dollars, it allowed United States to the ability to print infinite amount of money over the years. Hence this. 40% of the United States dollars in existence were printed in 12 months. This is only a right attributed to the country who is holding the world reserve currency. Now, this scenario is dangerous. I call it the fourth horseman of the financial apocalypse. Because if Saudi Arabia decide to follow through with this, accepting yuan as opposed to United States dollar, a direct opposite, a direct enemy of the United States, an enemy who is dealing also with Russia, right? Now we're going to, this is where this is going to play. Russia, China together partnering can seriously affect this. And now if Saudi Arabia joined the fight, whoo, they can damage the United States in several ways than one. They all three of them can decide to agree on one currency and say all the fertilizer sales needs to happen in this currency. Let's say that it's the yuan. Let's say that it's a currency that the BRIC system decide to use. Then Saudi Arabia control how the terms of this. They can make it happen because just like they said it here, they didn't control it. They partner with United States. United States offered security as opposed to make sure that you make my deal happen, which is why someone mentioned Iran, which is why Iran has always been a problem for the United States. Why? Because Iran wants what Saudi Arabia has. And also Iran has a nuclear power, but they can't deal with Saudi Arabia because the United States is making sure to protect them. Despite them related with Mr. Bin Laden, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because these guys holds the secret to our power. But the minute this is no longer the case, United States is going to do everything it can to grasp that power back because why? Its population needs it. Remember, populations got so used to eat dessert after each meal. Now, when you're going to say, United States, hey, you're no longer going to have dessert after each of your meal, they're going to demand the head of the leaders, unless the leaders is willing to wage war, aka Second Horseman of the Apocalypse, to Iran, to Saudi Arabia, to all the surrounding, to China, to Russia, to make sure they can go back to the same deal they had before. And what is that going to lead? To more high prices for food, more high prices for fertilizers. And one of the top 10 countries is leading this. So Saudi Arabia has its hands on two of the horsemen of financial apocalypse. The big one is controlling oil and agreeing on selling it on US dollars. If China and Russia promise security to Saudi Arabia, they and they and they agree to deliver on their promises, then Saudi Arabia has no business with the United States. And the two of them combined is going to be a fierce fight with the United States and NATO, because they don't even need to wage war to inflict pain. They can control what? The flow of fertilizers, which will affect what? The population. They can also control the flow of energy, which is Russia is a leader right now in natural gas in Europe, supplying over 70% of natural gas in Europe, also 40% of oil in Europe. And European countries are the NATO countries. Most of the NATO countries are in Europe. So, guys, this one horse can bring all three horses combined. More plague would lead to inflations, lockdown of the economy, more wars, more famine. And the small country of Saudi Arabia has the key to all this. And right now, they're already having discussions like this. So that's what I'm seeing. Are we seeing just this horse coming to play, bringing all three of the things that we notice? Or did we see one horses come and bring the other one 2 years after? And in the same year, the second horse brought the third horse. And this third horse is bringing the fourth horse along with it. Interesting. But there is a surprising resemblance between the traditional horsemen of the apocalypse on the books of Revelation and what's happening right now. And that's what I'm asking earlier. Are we living in biblical times? Are we heading towards the apocalypse? Or at the very least, are we heading towards the financial apocalypse? But these are things beyond of our controls. Some can say they are prophesied, some can say it's just life. But what we can do is control our mindsets and control our actions and see what we can do to benefit from this. For the next segments, we're going to talk about some things that you can be looking into to leverage the same information that we've been providing so far, to leverage those same horses to bring more money in your pocket, right? So that those horses does not bring the apocalypse of a portfolio or the apocalypse of your generational wealth. We're going to bring all that together. But first, let me go through the comment sections very quickly and see what happens. Carl Black, it is the death of an era, the end of the West on the rise, and the rise of the East. Yes, this is actually a cycle in history that you can trace. Death of the West, rise of the East, death of the East, rise of the West. 500-year cycle. The BRIC is already established in the Middle East, is closing all ranks. The British royals getting snubbed right, left, and center. Absolutely. You've noticed we can see that in the Caribbean right now, which is genius for the Barbados and Jamaica to take action now, while the British is too worried about war in their neighborhood. Genius move. This is why wars like this on big countries can be beneficial for small countries, because that's the only time they don't have enough time to focus on us. And Haiti should take notes, and they're not. Sad. It's already happening. The Crown Prince is already ignoring Sleepy Joe. Joke. Yes, the hegemony is being removed and the power play is shifting already. Yes. Which is why I'm saying war is inevitable. United States is going to be deep in war, because that thing right there, they have to hold on it, because their lifeline depends on it. And you're going to defend your life with all your might, and we're talking about the country that has the number one army in the world, they still have that. Cashflow Hunter, right at 11:11 p.m., said Saudi Arabia should create their own oil token. My man, imagine they did that backed by gold. And who's been buying gold for the last 10 years massively? Russia and China. Just like French people, they used to do back in the days, buy back the gold from the United States. And it took over 10 years before it settled to the 1971. Carl Black also at 11:11. I always see 11:11. So whenever, that's the only time so far my eyes caught. Interesting. So this is a high price of putting fools to run the family business. The enemy smell blood and making their move. Vladi would not made this move with Orange Man in office. Yes, I think I agree for the most part. But if Saudi Arabia was, I don't think it would have been this bad also with Saudi Arabia. Within a year, that's what Trucker was saying. Within a year, it deteriorated very fast. I've been trying to diversify, buying Bitcoin, Ethereum. I've been regarding it. It's not safe to leave your crypto on exchanges. As Canadians, how do you go about storing your crypto if it's not on a cold safe? A great question. Great question. And that's going to be my segue to the next point. Have you heard of the return of Mahdi? Some believe he may come from Iran. No, I haven't. I have not. I'll check into that because I'm not familiar with this situation here. All right. So what can we do to survive those end times, end days, end of eras, end of the portfolio that is coming for most people, but the rich knows about this, to taking measurements? What can we learn from all this? All right. So when it comes to the first horse, what can we invest in? Now, even if we're not in the first horse of the apocalypse, I would mention this. Actually, I wouldn't. I mentioned it already in my Discord group, in my exclusive Discord, because I have what I do, guys, is I invest in information. You know what? I would love to be a company one day where I spent so much money on research and information. I want to be the CIA of investing, right? No insiders information before the masses. I love knowing information, and I invest a lot of money last year, close to $20,000 last year. To actually, when you combine last year and the expense I made maybe last week, 2 weeks ago, my bad, it's almost $20,000 on just acquiring information before anyone else. So now, one of the information I had is the importance of biomedical technologies, right? Because let's just say it's going to do well. So one of the things I would recommend you guys to look into is biomedical technologies. Because why? Because we're going to have biomedical threats. With these horsemen, we're going to need a solution. If you can help bring the solution to life by investing in the company and get a reward in the process, by having a 10x, 5x, 1x, who knows, maybe just 50%, that's better than nothing. That's how you maintain the rate of growth of your portfolio, as opposed to let inflation remove that. And you need to multiply your portfolio faster than inflation. That's how you maintain your purchase power. So look into biomedical technologies. And if we're talking about CV19, this is an obvious play. Most people are going to get there. But what are other plays that you can play in this sector that people are not necessarily thinking about, but that could be beneficial? Have we have a war situation? Have we have a famine situation, right? Because we're looking at the financial apocalypse and they all link to another. And you know, when one comes, he brings the other one. So if you can find a way to invest in something that is at least tied to another one of these horses, that's your money grab right there. Second horses. This horse right here, what does he bring? War, right? What do we need in times of war? Oil. All is going to raise in price. That means if you can acquire anything that is any company that is processing it, you can benefit from that. But another thing you can invest in is precious metal. You can look at precious metal because what? Because of the first horse, it created a scenario where we had a huge inflation rising. When what is going to do well, and when inflations are rising, price of everything goes in. Everyone needs precious metal anyway for circuit boards, for technologies, for the next I don't know, teleguided missile and all that. So you can invest in precious metal. It is one fundamental thing that you can invest in that's going to benefit from this. Another thing you can invest in is, hey, people are going to need to print more money. So you might want to look at some bank stocks, because when there is war, the banks gets richer. All right. Federal banks gets richer, so more money will be printed, interest rate will be rising. Who knows? Actually, will be stay low for a moment and then will rise after, but banks will get out of it. The banks will always be on top on this, and it's the big banks that makes the big money. It always goes down to this: big wars destroy the wealth of the population, and they make the richer. They make the rich richer. Mister Third and Fourth Horse of the Third Horse of the Apocalypse. What can you do? Invest in to benefit from this horse that is coming. Someone mentioned it earlier. Was it Citizen M that mentioned it? Let me find that comment again. I'll find it. Don't worry. I own the stocks of the largest fertilizer company, Nutrien, and it's been doing great for me for the last for a little while. Right? That is definitely a great suggestion of a company you can look into, and not just the first thought, the best company. I would look at the top tens and try to find the best timing to come in. Right? The highest rate of growth is going to come from the company that is still having a large portion of the world supplying of fertilizers, and still at a lower price. The lower the price, the higher the rate of growth is, because eventually this entire sector is going to do well. So if you get something at $20, it rise to $40. That's a lot easier to make 100% of your return, as opposed to get something at $1,000 and then it gets to $2,000. It's going to take a long time for it to reach that. It also depends on the amount of stocks available, but shares available. But I would definitely start looking into this. If you want to invest in stocks, definitely look into that. Fertilizers. Great comment right here. I was going to bring that too. Another thing I would say to look into is commodities. All right. Wheat. Because the second horse here, especially in Russia and Ukraine, they control a lot of wheat. And wheat is definitely a direct relationship with the horsemen of the Bible. I'm not talking about the financial apocalypse here. We're talking about just the Bible. They literally mention wheat. You can invest in wheat. Company processing it, companies supplying it, this entire industry alone, you can look into it. You can look at other commodities, right? Including oil. You can look at other commodities too. Barrel of oil, they might do well. So things like this are going to rise. So if you can invest your money so that they rise with it, it beats inflation. But commodities in general will do well. Anything that the human needs, and we're talking about feed here. We're talking about famine. So we're talking about food, basic needs. Basic needs from humans. If you can invest in that, you'll do great. And then this one, the Fourth Horseman of the financial apocalypse, which arguably resemble a lot the horsemen of the biblical apocalypse. Shout out to the video we just listened to. What can you invest in? Well, you can look at the next world reserve currency, because what is guaranteed is every empire falls, and during their falls, they lose the status of a world reserve currency. Who has the world reserve currency as we speak is the United States. And right now, they're leading towards a way where they're losing the trend. They're losing this right here. And if they lose that, they were going to go to more wars. But who is this going to play a factor with? Maybe Russia, maybe China, maybe a mix of both. But to strengthen their currency, Mr. Putin here might mix the ruble with gold. Mr. Jinping might do the same thing, yuan with gold. And they might decide to form a currency used by the BRICS system, countries that are dealing without the US, have a currency backed by gold and embark Saudi Arabia on it for the exchange of security. Right? And guess what? Guess what? The enemy of my enemy is my friend, who has been a long-time enemy of United States, Iran. Iran and Saudi Arabia are enemies because Iran wants what Saudi Arabia has. Why does it want it? Iran wanted that so that it can control better what United States are doing. But now, if China and Russia are joining forces with Saudi Arabia, and all of them don't like the U.S., they might say, you know what, Iran, why don't you join us? We don't need to steal their oil anymore. We're still part of the same thing. We'll supply you the oil. We're going to allow you to flourish and progress. We'll guarantee you with security. In terms, chill. Make a peace treaty with this guy. Don't go after the oil, and don't bombard them, right? And then help us beat the real enemy in their eyes, which is the United States. And remember, this is a country that also can really affect the world with their fertilizer supplies, not just with oil. So interesting. So the next world reserve currency will definitely be upon us in the next couple of years. Definitely in this decade. I think so. I think in this decade we'll see a new currency, a new world currency. And it's going to be something that is backed by gold. It's going to have to do something it's going to be gold related. So what can you invest in? Silver and gold. You can invest in that. That's going to guarantee you a good spot on the next world reserve currency. But you could also invest in something that Russia is promoting right now, Bitcoin, that makes all countries sovereign. Because you don't need to rely on a country anymore to rely on this type of money. You can rely on the technology. And if China wants to play ball, they may have to agree with this deal if Saudi Arabia wants to play with Bitcoin. If Iran wants to play with Bitcoin. If Russia wants to play with Bitcoin, then they have no choice. They may have to force and agree to use Bitcoin as opposed to digital yuan. But here's another side to it. Because China is also controlling the world economy right now, and when it comes to manufacturing of the world, they might be able to be in a position where they dictate the terms and force all the other countries to play ball with their digital yuan, which they're going to go after against Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is a more the riskiest investment in this right now, but higher the risk, higher the reward. And you can allocate your portfolio according to the level of risk you're willing to take. But with that said, that's how you play the game with your portfolio so that you can embrace and prepare for the four horsemen that is coming, that some of them are already here, some of them are right on our doorstep, and some of them we can see them in a window coming ahead. That's what I wanted to go over today. Let's go over the comment section, but let me know what you think so far, guys. Am I reaching? Am I reaching, guys, or am I onto something? You let me know. Let's see. Let's go over the comment section very quickly. And thank you guys for being here all night. And make sure you hit the like comment as well. And please share these videos to other people as well so that they can be financially educated and understand how the uncontrollable forces that can affect your wealth can come to their desktops, as well as groceries, as well as affects their way of life, but also how they can prepare for it as well, right? Thank you for being here. And let's go to it very quickly. Facts. Haiti is not left out, sir. Jamaica and Barbados is shifting to a republic, and our Caribbean family, CARICOM, is coming with us. It's time to move everyone making their moves across the globes. Absolutely. I would also invest in EV batteries, given that oil prices will continue to rise and most auto manufacturers are shifting to electric cars. The other things is water. The water wars are coming. The water wars are here, and Canada is in a very good spot right now with this water, but they're going. It's inevitable, guys. Wars always end up being a resource war, and when there is this world war right now, they're coming for Canadians' water reserves. So we're going to be involved in it as well, one way or another. But yes, where you can live. Shout out to Peter Investor M. He mentioned that earlier. You can live 3-4 days without food, but we cannot live longer without water. Right? Futures market, absolutely. That's how you play the game. Choose your. If you want to go with that, I wouldn't go with directly with batteries. I would go with the. I said precious metals, but in precious metals, I also say I meant this, like what the requirements for EV. If you want to invest in that, go ahead. And I will try to find some resources that can have multiple use, not just EV. Because this one right now, you see Biden, when Biden jumped in, it did way great. And after, the EV market is not necessarily doing too well. With war, we don't know, right? We don't know. With oil prices rising, more companies like Tesla who already have it might do well, but they may, but maybe they may not be able to supply the demand for everyone. So it's I'm still iffy about that. I would much rather go with something fundamental, something that is needed, that has the test of time. And for me, the EV batteries are just too new, right? When we go in unsecure times like this, in volatile times like this, it's better to go back on fundamentals. So if you want to play this, I would say best definitely play it on a commodities level. Find the mines of ingredients that are fundamental to EV batteries, but not just EV batteries. Try to find other essential use for these minerals. And if you want to play it that way, then I'm okay with you. I'm okay with that, which is why I love gold, because even gold and silver, you still need that even in EV, even in solar panels, silver, right? So it's still indirectly invest in those markets, but also as a way to invest in the next currency, because often gold and silver are used as a foundation for the next currency. So that's another way you can play this as well. All right. That's what I mean by go more in the fundamental, not too specific. Something that is closely tied to what we need as a society to move forward. Next step after those horses wreak havocs in on Earth. I hope that's clear. Let's see. Did I miss anything? Futures market, absolutely. That's where you're going to find a lot of these opportunities. A simple portfolio of land, business via your own, and stock are in metal, gold, silver, nickel. Yes, nickel, copper. I love these. Digitally crypto, and keep some cash. Absolutely. Very good portfolio allocation. What I would say is try to focus, right? Focus on small amount and try to get a large quantity, small amount of niche, right? Maybe buy one of each niche, and then just like get a large quantity in those small investments. I mean, not small investment, just instead of looking at 10,000 stocks or 20 stocks you want to invest, just look at four, max, 4 or 5. But load up on all. And the more fundamental and more closely tied to basic needs you go, like fertilizers, for example, like oil, like precious metal, the better you will be. It's a great balance between safe portfolios versus able to handle the volatile times moving forward. But land, yeah, me too. I've been playing the land since last year, but I'm not, I don't think I'm ready yet for farming land. But at least I got some land right now. I'm happy with that. and then I'll load up more on cryptocurrencies and gold. I'll also play gold. Sorry guys, I don't know if I lost you for a minute or not. Here I accidentally closed my stream. But we're still live. We're still live. We're still at it. All right. So silver has a multiplier effect on many industries. It affects medical. Absolutely. Many people don't know this, but you're right, sir. You're right. Medical construction, etc., especially circuit boards, technologies, and solar panels, and EV. So it's a great way to be. That's what I'm saying. It's a great way to play many industries at the same time. Gaddafi tried to create that, creating a currency backed by gold for his oil, and you know what happened? Yes, I know what happened to him. What the US did to Gaddafi, US losing the world reserve currency, expected to be more wars. Absolutely. But guess what? Gaddafi then had the guns to protect himself. Guess who has it? They can't mess with Russia like they can with Gaddafi. They can't mess with China like they can with Gaddafi. And both of these countries already have system implemented to deal with other US. Now that Saudi Arabia is talking with them, this is what I'm saying. The fourth horseman is this, because they're holding a lot of power in their hands. A lot of power. Saudi Arabia. A lot of power without necessarily having a lot of guns to. Oops, sorry. Let me do that again. A lot of power without necessarily having a lot of guns to protect it. But still massive. All right, we're good. We're back online. All right, Peter Investor M, gold, silver, copper. Absolutely. I agree. All three. Electricity, for example, copper. Very, very important for electricity. A great conductor for electricity. So you can look into that. But that's it. Do you guys have any other questions, comments, concerns you would like to address before I go? Let me know in the chat. I would gladly answer your questions. But guys, this is what I wanted to talk to you about today, guys. The four horsemen and the financial apocalypse. Make sure you hit the like button. Please help me grow this channel by sharing these videos to more people. Write a comment after the stream is over, guys, because that's another way you can support with engagement. Because lately, YouTube is not sharing my videos to even my own subscribers, let alone to other people. So I've been reaching a style where I'm not growing as a YouTuber. It's been demotivating in a way. It's not really encouraging me to do much, but it's you guys here in the comment section that gives me the energy to move forward, to at least come here every Sunday, even at 11 p.m. on a Sunday night. I'm still here with you guys talking. It's to interact with you guys on the comment section. So shout out to you. But please also, after the stream is over, write a comment on the not the stream, but the comment section of the video after it's posted. It's going to be posted right away. Just do a refresh. You can write a comment, and then just write the biggest takeaway, for example, or on the stream, or write for the algorithm, anything you want. It really will help. And if you guys can share this stream to as many people as possible, that would be great. Shout out to you, Jessica. Said that you logged in late. Well, at least the replay will be available. You can check it out. We went over some great points today, and I made the case that we may have already be looking at the four horsemen of the financial apocalypse, which accidentally coincided with the horsemen of the biblical apocalypse. And you've seen the title, you've seen the thumbnail. If you come late, you can check it out, the replay. We cover a lot, and lots of gems, guys. Lots of gems drop. But let me go very quickly. Congratulations on the land. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Also, guys, joining on the Discord channels. This is where a lot of this information I share on my Discord. I have a free Discord that everyone can join and have conversation. Some free channels you can discuss too. And then the real deal, it happens on my Patreon /exclusive Discord, where I share some insiders information. I go and pay with my own money up $20,000 so far to get insiders information so that I can share it on the public with you guys so that you don't have to spend that money to get information as well. But the info I get can gives you foresights 3, 4, 5 years ahead of the masses. So now, so that you know which investments to make. And right now, the latest investment I make is swing trading, 3 months holding between you hold between 60 days and 90 days, but backed by AI, artificial intelligence. And so far, the pick has been doing great. So even in a bear market on the cryptocurrencies, my portfolio is still up right now thanks to these picks that we have on Discord. And then I'm going to make more videos about that on my Discord starting tomorrow. I'm actually late on that, but I'm going to be releasing it tomorrow. But so far, if you're on my exclusive Discord, I make sure I tag everyone on it. It's a very good report, well detailed, and yeah, more money that I put in on this business, I put it back. It's my own profit that I put back on this business. But I want you to be able to equip yourself with the highest quality of information so that you can make the best decisions for yourself to to generate generational wealth for you and your family, and also to even have a clear mind that allows you to still have a smile despite the times that we're heading on, despite the volatile times and the scary times that we're living on. If you have your calm, collective, you equip with the information that's going to give you this peace of mind, then you can take some actions that's going to ensure that you still can buy food moving forward, still maintain your wealth moving forward, and be financially free as well so that you don't necessarily depend on a job. You can live off your portfolio that is thriving, and in the end, you free up your time. It gives you more time to go address the other problems of the world. So I see you guys are chatty in the chat. Let me go very quickly before I wrap up. Should I invest in precious metal like gold, silver, and copper? I'm not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice, but these are good plays. They have proven in the past when we are in uncertain times like wars. Then and when we are losing the world reserve currency, they are often good investments to make. So past performance does not necessarily mean future results, but if there is a nice way that you can play these horsemen that are coming ahead, gold and silver are a good play, definitely. And you can look into copper if you like it as well. That's up to you. Gaddafi give up his weapon because of bamboo. Vladi don't play BS. Absolutely. Anybody lives in Toronto area? I did. I did live in Toronto for 8 years. Not currently. Right now I'm in Montreal, but I still have close ties to Toronto. So um, let's just say that technically I understand your pain, and trust me, I understand your struggles with real estate there. And one day I'll go over I actually made a stream already of my stream when I went viral on Toronto on CBC as a millennial who couldn't buy real estate. That was before I started my financial journey. But now I'm in a different scenario where I don't worry about that. I just worry about timing the market. But shout out to you and thank you again for your comments today. Um, I would like to network with like-minded people. Join the Discord. It's the best way to do it. That's why I created. Join the Discord, Wealth Engineering. The links will be somewhere in the description of this video, so make sure you check it out. What is the Discord? The link will be in the descriptions. I don't know if I have it already, but it will be there for sure. If not on the replay or my previous videos, you'll see the link for the Discord. You click on it, it's there. You're going to have access to the free Discord. And then if you want the real deal, the exclusive informations, then you check out the Patreon. That's where I check out the Patreon and make sure you link that with the Discord so that you can access all the other channels that you don't necessarily have access to if you're on the free channel. But regardless, we have a growing Discord right now, over 100 people there. So you can still, even if the free information can help you out, and at least everyone is there to have a great time, share information together, grow together on that journey. So we'll be happy to see you guys there. If not, you alone, YouTube stay getting cuss out for the RBS. Will do. Oh, sorry. Okay, good. Um, oh, nice. Good. Another person from Toronto. Great. It's nice to meet you too. And representing Toronto tonight. Great. Smart Moves will join your Discord. I've ever heard of about the Tiger 21 Global Investments Club. Tiger 21, no. But there's many different people doing different things. Everyone join their own tribe. I mean, I want to create my own tribe, and I have my own philosophy of sharing information for long-term investments, and then for a specific type of investments, cash flow value investing. You make money now, you make money in the future. Meanings, I buy my cryptocurrencies, I get a dividend or an interest every day, and then also I get value appreciation over time with my investments 10x, 100x, right? And then I'm looking at other industries and other investments I can make now, like penny stocks, for example, and then look at what it's going to be down the line, 5 years, 10 years down the line. That's why I pay a lot of money for information. It's because I want to know which niche, which industry, and what's the time it's going to do it. And I take my profit from my short-term investments, I put it on my long-term investment. I sit back, relax, and build my portfolio. But that's basically the principles that I teach. I also have a course on my website, wealthengineering.ca. It's for beginners, for people who have been investing. If you have not invested before, or you haven't investing in less than 2 years, then you want to go through this course. It's gonna give you a lot of fundamentals, understand the forces that can affect your wealth, macroeconomy, understand the different assets class, and more importantly, understand the timing, when to get in, when to get out, especially when it comes to business, real estate, stocks, and crypto. I talk about that. I've made this course in 2020, and it's going to be a classic. I don't even have to change most of it. And 10 years down the line, this is going to be the same thing that's going to be needed to create wealth. So, how to engineer wealth? I put my heart into this course, shared a lot of information, and in the Discord, I keep updating you guys with the masterminds on my Patreon as well. So that's why we're here. So, all right, guys. Thanks Wealth Engineering. Looking forward to checking out your page. Me too. I'm looking forward to see you more here in the YouTube channel. We do a stream at least 2 times a week, Wednesdays and Sundays, and then I release videos on a weekly basis, 2 3 times a week. So I'm happy to see you guys here in the chat. But I love interacting with you guys, especially if you're in Toronto, fellow Canadian. Make sure you join in on Discord and say hi. Well, we'll stay connected. And thanks, bro. Great session today. I will definitely check the Discord. Well, great. Thank you too. And shout out to you. With that said, guys, thank you for your time. Thank you for your energy in the chat and the love, the super chats that I've received today. The sponsors of the stream, Peter Investor M, salute to you. All a member of this channel, and also he often super chats. Truly appreciate it. And shout out to you again for the $2.5 super chat again. And again, if you want to support this channel to another way, great way you can do it is by joining as a member. If you don't want to do the Patreon, it's fine. But YouTube is not necessarily doing it well. I think they're censoring my channel because of the content that I talk about. I don't think they like the war type of content, but it's things that I have to talk about because it plays a factor into our portfolio, and you need to understand this because it's going to help you see what's coming ahead. So I still take the risk. Every time I talk about one of these videos, I see my income goes, and we're talking about just $1 per video, but it goes like cents per video. So really appreciate those super chats. It really helps and really motivate me, guys, to move forward. But it's not easy as a content creator when YouTube is not promoting even to your own subscribers your content. It just makes you you just still have to find the energy to work harder. But that's one of the reasons why I really appreciate you guys in the chat. It's for these reasons that I create this, and I love interacting with you guys. All right, guys. So with that said, we'll see you on the next one. Stay tuned. Wednesday, eventually I'll post when I confirmed on the topic. I'll post the topic for Wednesday. But we'll meet again. And hope you took some benefits from this stream. make sure you like and also refresh this page and write a comment, and we'll see you there. Shout out.
Hey, it's all about wealth. It's all about wealth. It might be something that you're not used to. It's okay, cause I'm here to introduce you to concepts. Time to grow and make big moves. All about crypto, come see. Stocks and business, yes indeed. Got the info that you need. Hosted by my homie JC. Hey, yeah. Wealth engineering, stacking and stacking it up. It's time to generate